I am loving this chapter. These are problems that I can sink my teeth into because they're stories. They make sense to me. They're things that I actually do in daily life. All right, on page 210, we're looking in the margin at core skill. It says use ratio and rate reasoning. Sometimes when comparing proportional relationships, you will have to convert units. Dean earns $75 per day and he works 7 days per week. The graph below describes Dean's spending. So we're given his information about his earnings, or let's call it his income. It says that he earns $75 per day. And he works 7 days. So a couple of things I can do with this. I can write an equation. I can say that his income equals 75 times the number of days that he works. So y equals 75x. And when x is 7 days, his income is going to be 75 times 7, $525 for 7 days. Now, another thing that I would really like to do here, and this comes from just doing enough of these problems, it comes from experience. I want to calculate Dean's unit rate. Now, I'm going to show you, no, I'm just going to do it. We've got it already. $75 per day. That is also the slope, and that is also the constant of proportionality. Because if Dean works 0 days, Dean gets $0. So the 0-0 principle is met, or the 0-0 test is met. Okay, then they give me a graph. And you can make it with me if you want to. If you have the textbook, you can just look at the textbook. But we are plotting the weeks, that's the independent variable, against the amount that Dean spends. So in week 0, he spends 0. In 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and I'll go one more. Then on this scale, we have $500. We have $1,000. We have $1,500. And then we have $2,000. So this spending is scaled in $500 increments. So that means that one line is $250. This line would be $750. This line would be $1,250. This line would be $1,750. And you don't have to do that. That scale's a little bit different though. It's not an even increase. Okay, it's an even increase, but it's not, you have to jump by 250 is what I'm saying. Okay, so here are the points the graph gives me. At week 1, he spends, that's hard to see, a little bit over $500. I'm guessing about $600 maybe. Right there. Okay. I'm going to call it about $600. So in the first week, he spends $600. In the second week, he's almost up to $1,500. But, well, he's almost up to $1,250, we'll say. That's in the second week. So that confirms what I got here. So in week 2, he spent $1,200. Week 3, we're going to put him just over the $1,750 mark. That would be about $1,800. So week 3, we have $1,800. You may already see the problem here. But just in case, let's go ahead and remember this green line that I'm drawing is his spending. So he is spending $600 a week. Now let's graph his income. Remember, for 1 week, his income was $525. Let me change color here. So week 1, his income was about right there. So week 2, I would say 525 times 2. That's 1050. So about right here. Week 3, I would say 525 times 3 is 1575. So about right here. Let me do one more. There's a point I want to make here. So at 4 weeks, he would have spent $2,100. And there's that thing right up, perched up in the way. Let me move it over here. 1 week would be $2,100 right there. So let me graph this income line in blue. And again, at 0, no income, no hours. Everything is equal there at 0. But then once you get away from 0, let me try one more time. They're close, the two lines. But do you see the problem? Compare the two lines. This one is his income. And his income is $525 per week. So what conclusions can we draw here? Let's compare spending. The slope for spending is 600. The slope for income is 525. Dean's in trouble. And you see how this, when you first start out right here, there's no space between the lines. But the more it goes, the wider the space gets. The gap between those two lines increases as time passes. So not only the first week, it was just $75 difference. It wasn't that big of a deal. But if this pattern continues, Dean is going to have a serious problem because his spending is greater than his income. And here's the rest of the story on page 210. To determine whether Dean's pay supports his spending, you will have to compare the amount he earns to the amount he spends. Notice that Dean's spending is described weekly, while his pay is described daily. I didn't even notice that. I'm so used to doing these and just converting units, but that's true. His pay was given in terms of days. His spending is given in terms of weeks. You will have to use reasoning to compare weekly amounts to daily amounts. Use the graph to determine how much Dean spends per week, How can you determine how much Dean earns per week? Does Dean's pay support his spending? Explain. So I would say, based on all of our work, no, his pay is less than his spending. And if that pattern continues, Dean will be in trouble. Ideally, you want it to be the opposite. You want your spending to be the smaller slope and your income to be higher. I literally just sat down. We got raises this year, so I had to do a re-budget everything. And I literally just sat down and I did this very thing using my own personal income. It's a very valuable skill to have. If you ever get a job at an office or somewhere working in payroll, you may have to use this kind of thing. One of my former students does this very thing. She works in payroll, and she told me not long ago that she uses this skill every day. She also has to read graphs with this skill. So it's time well spent, not only for your high school equivalency test, but also for a job in the future. Those of you who are going into nursing, this is important for you to understand this skill.